Hello, everyone, and welcome to this live stream on preparing your Sweden journey. If you're watching this, you're probably admitted to your studies in Sweden. So, first of all, congratulations. In this stream, it's going to be around 1 hour, and we're going to be talking to some international students that are currently living and studying in Sweden. What we won't be answering on this live stream is the eligibility of certain scholarships, and we're not going to be talking about how to apply for a residence permit. However, we have a video series on YouTube about the residence permit, so if you're interested in this, you can watch that. So let's just get into the live stream. So we are going to invite Chris and Dalaa to join us. Hello,
Hello.
Hi,
welcome. How are you?
good. How are
Good, good.
you?
Great. So let's just get right into it. So we can start off with introductions. So, Chris, let's start with you.
It's really good to see you. I'm Chris. I'm originally from Athens, Greece, and I'm currently studying. I'm studying marketing management at Jönköping University. Yeah. Guess that's it.
Great. Dalaa?
Hi everyone. My name is Chandara. I go by Lala on Instagram, and I come from Phnom Penh, Cambodia, and I am studying at Lund University. I'm doing my master in international human rights law.
Nice. So let's get into some of the more harder questions or interesting questions. So let's start off with, is living in Sweden as you expected? And what has surprised you the most about living here? We can start with you, Dala.
Um, I would say yes, although I don't necessarily have much expectation regarding coming to Sweden. But yes, it is as myself has expected. I think one thing that surprised me the most is how reliable public transportation is. Because I come from Cambodia, we have public transportation, but it is not that common that people take it on a daily basis. But here it's like it's everywhere. You can rely on public transportation. They come on time most of the time, and I think it's really convenient. So if there's one thing that has surprised me the most, it's that.
Okay, nice. How about you, Chris?
Contrary to Della, I had a lot of expectations coming to Sweden. I had researched so much about it, so I wanted to know before coming here how it would look like. And honestly, I feel like my expectations have been met. It's such a wonderful country that really fulfills all of my priorities when it comes to society, education, everything that was really in my priority list when deciding to study abroad. The one thing that surprised me most about being here is, I would say, the friendliness of people, because I feel like when it comes to Swedish people, you hear a lot of stereotypes, but honestly, Swedish people are one of, like, they're so nice, and like one of the nicest people I have met and befriended. So I it's really enjoyable so far.
Nice. Okay, so considering the weather in Sweden, what do you enjoy the most and what do you find challenging? Let's start with you, Chris.
Well, the weather, I feel like the weather is something that everyone kind of hears about as something bad. And I would say during the winter time, I mean, the low temperatures combined with the like 2, 3 hours of daylight you might have, depending on which part of Sweden you live in, is can get a bit bad. And I feel like that was the
Mhm.
most challenging part for me, surviving the winter. And for me, I would say all year round, the toughest part is not the temperatures rather than the darkness. Now, for example, it's starting to get really light. So the sun comes up very early, it sets really late. And I find that very enjoyable, although the temperatures might not be um, as as high as I would like them to be for spring.
Yeah,
But absolutely.
yeah, it feels like this year in particular, it's like really cold now in April. Even
Yeah.
me as a Swede, like it should be a lot hotter right now. How about you, Della?
I think for me, it's the same as Chris. The thing about weather that I find most challenging is the darkness. It's like it's only 2 or 3 hours of daylight, and it's kind of depressing, especially for me coming from a country where there is summer all year round. I get sun all year round, so coming here is a little bit tricky at first, but because when I start taking vitamin D, when I start adapting to the weather, it's kind of getting better. And the thing that I enjoy the most is snow. It's the same because I come from the country where there is no snow, so you don't get to experience that kind of feeling, especially during Christmas or anything. So I really find that enjoyable. It's like in the movie that you see all those snow, and now you kind of live in it. So I really enjoy in the snow, but I don't like the darkness at all.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like it's also true that Sweden can be very cold, but it's important to address that like the houses are well built in Sweden, which means you'll never be cold indoors because we have indoor heating, of course. And there's like the Swedish saying that goes, "There's no bad weather, just bad clothes." So if it's cold outside, you have to layer up. So you have to have layers of layers of layers of clothing. And yeah. And if it's raining, wear a raincoat, of course. Okay, let's go to the next question. So, how do you get around in your Swedish hometown? Do you take the bus, metro, bike? Let's start with you, Dala.
Yes. So I live in Lund. Lund is a pretty small town, and it's like a student town. So everywhere to get from one place to the other is really convenient. At first, during my first like 4 or 5 months, I take the bus, because it's easier compared to like if you take the bike or if you walk. But right now, since I moved to another accommodation and it's pretty close to where I study, to the campus, it's about 20 to 25 minutes walking. So for a while, I have been walking, but recently I started biking because I got a bike myself, and I find it's really convenient because the thing with the bus is there's a specific time that it will stop running, like for example at midnight. So having your own bike, it's more easier if you want to travel around. So I kind of like tend to experience almost everything that you can experience as a student here, but it's pretty nice.
Yeah, Lund is a great city to grab your bike as well. So I lived in Lund, and yeah, it's really beautiful and easy to bike around. How about you, Chris?
I usually take the bus. I've changed accommodations as well. So now I live in an accommodation that's closer to the city center. So it's very convenient for me to take the bus, and in like 5 minutes I'm in the city center. And university consequently, because our university campus is in the city center. But I of course in the previous accommodation I lived in, I also took the bus because it was farther away. I can't get anywhere by walking, unfortunately, but I do want to get into biking at some point in the future because as especially now that the weather is getting a bit better and whatnot, I'm seeing so many people have bikes, and it kind of makes me feel like this is the Swedish culture, and it would be nice to start getting into it. But eventually I will. But for now, bus it is, and it's very convenient, so I can't complain.
Yeah, yeah, the public transport works very efficiently and it's almost always on time. And there's student discounts on public transport card. And yeah, so it's pretty affordable. It tends to be a bit more expensive in the bigger cities like Stockholm and so, but it's relatively affordable, I would say. And if you live in a smaller town, the bike is a go-to choice. I mean, it's such a freedom to just take the bike whenever you want, and yeah, there's usually very good bike roads as well here in Sweden. Let's go to the next one. This one is about budgeting and the cost of living. So, given Sweden is perceived as an expensive country, how do you manage your money as an international student? Let's start with you, Chris.
Well, I'd say before coming here, managing my money was, kind of a concern as to how would I actually succeed in doing that. But I would say that after coming here and having kind of like settled my finances, I would say it's not that hard, actually. I make a little budgeting. I started off doing it through like the banking app. So usually most banking apps have sections where you can put in a set budget for groceries, transportation, shopping, and whatnot. So I started off doing that. And in the first couple of months, I understood kind of my own shopping habits and how much I need to spend on each certain category. But after that, I depended more on just my head, just doing the calculations in my head. And obviously, a lot of times I always go back to like my insights on my bank account and seeing at each certain month, like where did I spend most of my money? Where do I need to cut back? Where do I have the liberty to spend a bit more? So it really depends on your personal shopping habits and of course the city you live in.
Yeah. How about you, Della?
Yes, I think I personally feel that managing your finance as a student in Sweden is much more easier compared to like if you're an adult who have a job and living in Sweden. I think that's probably more expensive for them because first of all, we have a lot of student discounts. So I and especially like if you're studying in a small city like Lund or probably in shopping as well, they know that this town is like specifically for students, so most of the stuff they have like a student discount, and usually it tend to be cheaper. That's what I feel like. Okay, so that's the first thing. And for example, for like grocery, you have this like once you have your personal number, you can become their member, and with the membership of the grocery store, everything is a bit cheaper than it usually is. So it's even better. So for me, I do this since I was in my home country. I have an app where I can track all my finances, so I know where I spend. I know like which big portion of my money goes. Usually it's for rent, and then it would be groceries, and then it would be if you go to the gym or if you do the other stuff, then it's for that. They are you have to spend for like the internet. They if you visiting a doctor, if you want to buy some stuff, all kind of thing. And I think like once you're here for like 2 to 3 months, you kind of know how much you spend, and then I think you can work from that. And for me personally, I am a scholarship student, so I got my monthly allowance. So it's really important that I kind of stick to the monthly allowance that I got. Otherwise, I would be in trouble. But yeah, I think once you get the whole of everything, it's really easy to manage and it's manageable, and it's not as expensive as it is. It's expensive still, but not as it is.
Yeah, yeah. So in Sweden, you'll need a minimum of 10,300 crowns to cover your living cost. This minimum is calculated by the Swedish Migration Agency, and this amount is also relevant when you are applying for a residence permit here in Sweden. So that's like, yeah, something you can think about. It's about that expensive to live here month by month, but of course it can be more expensive, it can be less expensive depending on your lifestyle and what city you're in. If you're in Stockholm, maybe that's a bit more expensive usually than some of the other smaller towns. And the national student discount card, which is not your university specific student card, has like a lot of student discounts, as we discussed. We have Mecenat and Studentkortet, which like you can get discounts from on everything basically, like shops, online store, cafes, gyms, a lot of stuff. So that's a good tip to check out when you get here. And we also touched a little bit on the personal identity number, and we'll get back to that a little bit later. So let's go on with the next one. So Dala, are you using mostly cash or are you using a credit or debit card? And
Yeah.
yeah, how did you perceive the process of opening a bank account in Sweden, if you have?
Yes. So mostly I use a card because it's easier. But I feel like in most store here, they also accept a cash. Like for example, if you go to a grocery store, there are counter that that you can pay by cash, which is a really convenient as well. Because the first few weeks that I got here, I think I paid by cash. But it's of course easier if you can just pay by your a debit card, because you don't have to worry about carrying around all that cash that you have. So it's pretty convenient. And it like debit card, you can use it everywhere. It's really easy. It's really easy. And you should have once you come here. For me, I feel like opening a bank account in Sweden is a bit complicated in the sense that you need a personal identity number, like in order to open it. However, it would take a while, probably. In my experience, it's about 2 to 3 months to obtain a like personal number and your Swedish ID card. And once you get that you can open your bank account. So it's hard, because if you don't have that, then you cannot open a bank account. And I think the specific challenge thing is that when you when you apply for a personal identity number, the Swedish ID card, you have to pay, like for you have to pay for that card. And you kind of need a Swedish bank account to pay for that. But it's kind of like you need a Swedish ID number first, and then you get your bank account, but then you need a bank account to obtain the ID, like the Swedish ID card. So it's kind of like yeah, but I figured it out. The thing about opening a bank account for me specifically is that once you arrive here, I think you can ask the bank for this. From my experience, I can open a bank account while waiting for my Swedish personal number. So I can apply it with my temporary number. But the thing is, I cannot use Swish, or I cannot use the banking app. But I can get the debit card and I can use it at the supermarket or at the store. So it's really convenient for that. And I think if you're like me, that's probably a good idea to do that. So then I have the Swedish bank account, and then once I have my Swedish ID card, then I go to the bank and let them update it for me. So I kind of I so then I am able to use like Swish or the other banking system in the app. So
Yeah.
that's my experience. Yeah.
Yeah, and Swish, for those of you that don't know, Swish is just an app that we use a lot here in Sweden to just pay on your phone. So lots of supermarkets actually accept this payment, but often it's just used to send money from one person to another through their phone number. There's a lot of other apps in other countries that are basically the same, but here in Sweden, Swish is the dominant one. So, okay, let's go to you, Chris. How about you?
I'd say for me, coming from a country that whose like dominant way of paying was is cash, it was a huge change coming to Sweden that's so like technologically advanced and so like technology first, I'd say, where like debit cards are the norm for paying for everything essentially. I mean, even in places where I was always used to paying by cash, which is like local markets or like paying friends or like very small purchases here and there of like 10 crowns or something, people here pay by card. So it was a huge change. And I think all of my purchases have been with cards since coming to Sweden. There was a time where I had some cash because I paid something with my friend and like they gave me cash for it. And I actually found it difficult to spend that cash. I think I spent it on groceries because I couldn't find any other store that took cash. So it was really weird, but very convenient in my opinion. But when it comes to the bank account, I would say I agree with Della. It is a very it's a lengthy process, that's for sure. Like for me, I think it took 2 to 3 months, from applying for my personal ID number to getting the bank account. So it's a relatively long process. So you should definitely make sure that you have a bank account that works and a card that works before coming to Sweden. But I think it's straightforward if you know what to do, and it's getting the personal number, getting the ID, then get an appointment to open a bank account. So yeah, I'd say it's straightforward in that sense.
Yeah, yeah, and as we discussed here, like the Sweden is pretty much a cashless society. Like everywhere you can use your credit card or debit card, and sometimes it can actually be a bit tricky to find places where you can pay with cash, but most shops usually accept cash. But if you're going to go on the bus and you want to pay that in cash, that might be a problem still, for an example. But so you can get your Swedish personal identity number, which you need to open a bank account, and you can get this if you have a residence permit for at least 12 months, or if you're an EU citizen and are admitted to studies for 13 months or more. And yeah, let's go on to the next question. So let's talk a little bit about housing and accommodation in Sweden. So can you share your journey in securing housing as in Sweden? Let's start with you, Chris.
Well, I'd say for me, I switched. So, like I said, I've lived in two accommodations in Sweden. The first one, the one that I arrived to essentially when I came to Sweden, was secured by my university. So, my university actually gave us guaranteed accommodation. The only caveat was that we didn't know which accommodation we would be selected to live in. So that was the only tricky part. But I thankfully, I didn't have the stress of accommodation before coming to Sweden. But since it wasn't an accommodation that I really preferred living in, I did go through the process of securing accommodation myself after being in Sweden. It is, I would say, looking at it from like a technical standpoint, it is straightforward in the sense that everything happens mostly online. You have the liberty of looking through like photos of accommodations, talking with like company representatives yourself. So you get a gist of the research process through very simple, straightforward websites. The only problem is that usually you do need to be registered in a housing queue. And for me, having had a personal number, it was very easy to sign up for all the housing queues, collect points as I was looking for housing, and then eventually register for accommodation that I liked and actually got accepted for it. But I know that depending on the different housing companies or whether or not you have a personal number, it can get a bit trickier and it might require more time and effort. But it is I definitely find myself to have been lucky in that sense because I didn't need a lot of time. I think it's also very important considering the period of the year in which you're looking for housing. Usually during the summer, as the new year rolls in at university, it can get really hard to find and secure accommodation. Whereas if you're doing it in an off season, like I did it around February, I would say it is much more easy.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, what about you, Dala?
So yes, for me, so as an international student coming from outside the EU, I have this housing guarantee provided by the university. So they have like different types of housing, and then you can apply for like you can put your preference like up to five, and then the housing that given to you would be in one among those five. So I would suggest like to everyone to check with your university whether you have like housing guarantee or not. Because like if you have it, I would suggest to take it first, and then once you arrive in here, then you can try to like look for other accommodation if you don't prefer the one that you've been assigned to, because it's like easier to have something secure first before you arrive here. And I don't have experience much about the housing queue, so I think Chris pretty much covered everything. But another way that you can find it is in Facebook group. And I think it's really accessible to everyone. I'm not sure with the other city, but in Lund or in Malmo, for example, they have this Facebook group where people who have like their housing or they have room for rent, then they would post a picture saying, okay, they have room here, how many square meter, how much is the rent, something like that. And if you're looking for a rent, then you can also post it yourself that, okay, you're the student from here and you're going to here Lund University, for example, and you're kind of looking for housing right now. So it's all on the Facebook group that you can talk to. And at some university at Lund, specifically, they have this app called Go In app. That is specifically for newly admitted student that they can connect. There is no staff. There is no like people from the university in here. It's a student by themselves. So you get to know the other. Probably you get to find roommate through there. You get to find room and accommodation, something like that. So um it just like to do research and then find where you can find the housing. But I would really suggest to check whether you are qualified for housing guarantee, because if you are, then you don't have to go to like too much hassle before coming here.
That's a really great tip. Let's see. So on housing, so what are the different types of housing you can expect in Sweden as a student, and what about the rent? What can you expect? Let's start with you, Dala.
Yes. So as far as I have observed, I think different types of housing can be the corridor rooms, which can be with or without bathroom, where you share the kitchen with other students. Like for example, where I am living right now, I am living in a corridor room where I have my own bathroom, a toilet and shower inside, but I have to share the kitchen with the other 15 students. So it's like it's a big kitchen where you share with other. And usually corridor room is the cheapest option, I would say. And it's really nice to live in a corridor room as a student because you get the combination of both your like your personal space, but you also get to hang out with other people when you want to and if you want to. So in the kitchen, yes, of course. So yes, the corridor room, and then it's the shared apartment. So share apartment is usually a one big apartment that you have like few, probably two to three roommates. It's a good thing because probably you don't have like your private shower, but you don't have to share kitchen with other people. So it's not like 10 to 15 people, it's only three or four people that you have to share it. And another one is the studio flat. So for studio flat, it's like an apartment, but you have everything to yourself. You have the kitchen in there, the bathroom, your bedroom is inside, and it's only you. But usually, it is the most expensive one in my experience. So for with regard to rent, you can expect to, this is depends on the city that you're coming as well, but you got to pay probably 4,000 or 305,000 to 4 3,500. Not three. Yeah, I'm sorry. 3,500 to probably 5,000 in a corridor room, and if it's a studio flat, it's probably 6,000 and up and more. Yeah, and you can expect to find that most room are fully furnished, like they have basic furniture that you don't have to worry about. And when it comes to kitchen, they usually provide the basic utensil that you can use, so you don't have to worry about buying it or bring it from your country. So it's really nice. So check with your housing agency with regard to that. Yeah.
Yeah, great. I think you covered pretty much the different parts of housing accommodations that we can expect here as a student. So let's go on with actually a chat poll. So now I want you all in the chat to type out what kind of accommodation would you like to try when you get to Sweden? So type one in the chat if you like to try out the corridor room where you share the kitchen and live with a bunch of other students. Type two if you would like to try a shared apartment. This is where you just share an apartment with like two, three, maybe four other students, and you can split the rent. Or number three, the student apartment or the studio apartment, where you get your own apartment. It's usually a little bit more expensive, but you get everything for yourself. So type your answers in the chat and let's see what we get. Let's see if I can bring up the chat here as well. Yeah, we got a lot of different answers, a lot of threes, some twos, some ones as well. Yeah. Got a big variety here. Interesting. So, I mean, while you're staying here in Sweden, you can, of course, try out multiple different living situations. Chris, you had moved once when
Yes.
since you gotten here, and yeah, there's no rush. Nice. Okay, great. Thank you for your participation in the chat. It's lovely to see. Let's go on. So, let's go to the Swedish language. So, how essential do you find knowing Swedish in your daily life and academic experience? Let's start with you, Chris.
I mean, personally, I might be a bit biased, but I love learning languages in general. So I knew that once I'd be coming to Sweden, whether or not I would be staying here in the long term, I knew I wanted to learn Swedish. But I think that looking at it from a general point of view, I think that you can 100% live in Sweden without knowing the language. First of all, like from my academic experience, none of my classes require Swedish. Even though a lot of our professors are Swedish, most are international, though I would say, in my degree at least. So Swedish is absolutely not necessary at university. In your daily life, though, as well, I would say that even though I would expect not to feel as accommodated because I don't know the language, I really feel at home in the sense that whether you're like shopping at a local market or you're at a very big store or a grocery store and whatnot, everyone knows a certain level of English to be able to properly communicate with you. So I've never felt really the need to know Swedish 100% to live, but I do feel like learning the language of the place you're living in can definitely make you feel more integrated into the society. And I would say for me, a bit more confident in communicating and knowing the locals as well. So it's not essential, not at all, but it is a really nice thing to have. And if you're debating on whether or not you should do it, I 100% recommend you do it. It's really fun, and it does help a lot in your integration in society.
Yeah. How about your experience, Stella?
Yeah, I think the same with Krish. The major that I'm taking is like an English taught program, so you don't really need Swedish in order to study. But regarding the daily life, I feel that you don't need to, like, I mean, you don't have to, but it would be nice to know some basic language. Because, for example, when I get a mail from like tax agency or from some from healthcare, for example, those are in Swedish. Like,
Right.
so all of them are in Swedish. So I feel that it would be nice to know, like, to be able to know that without having to, Google Translate it all the time. But yes, it's in that kind of sense. And as a student, I'm sorry, for example, I come here for 2 years, so I have a personal number. Once you have a personal number, you are able to study Swedish for free. It's called Swedish for immigrants, SFE. So it's the course that I am currently taking right now. And it's really nice. You get to learn, you get to meet other people. But I still believe, like Krish, that once you're in another country, it is really help you in terms of immersing yourself with the country itself by knowing the language. And yeah, even when you go to grocery, there's no English actually, like on the fruit or on the vegetable, on the other thing. So, and I think it feels like whether you want it or not, you're gonna pick it up like a little bit word here and there. So why not just learn it completely?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a great what do you say, like yeah, I mean, to integrate into the Swedish way of life, of course, learning a little bit of Swedish is really good. And I mean, Swedes love to speak English, and most everyone is very good at talking English. So it's not really a hurdle if you can't speak Swedish. I mean, you will get around with no problem. But if you come here, please do take the opportunity and learn our beautiful language. It's I mean, it's fun and it's easier to integrate into the society, of course. As we already discussed a little bit, there are free courses. You can learn SFI, Swedish for Immigrants, and there's also free and paid courses at studyinsweden.se. So you can check those out. And your university might also offer some Swedish courses for beginners. So make sure to check that as well. Let's do another poll. So I'm interested in seeing if you guys are interested in learning Swedish when you come here. So type yes, type one in the chat if you're excited and you want to learn it as soon as possible. Type two if it's maybe, three only the basics, four no, you don't think it's necessary. So let's see some chat. All right, away. We got a lot of ones here. A lot of ones. Everyone is excited to learn the Swedish language. That's, I mean, that's very nice to see. Almost everyone. There's some twos in there. Okay, okay. I haven't seen a single four, or not
Yeah,
even three, I think.
impressive.
Yeah, that's nice to see. So as we talked about, there are a lot of resources to help you learn the language once you come here. So be sure to check with your university, check SFI, Swedish for Immigrants, and also check studyinsweden.se. We have a page there where you can see various courses where you can learn. All right, great. Let's go on then. So can you describe a classroom experience in Sweden that was different from your home country, and how did you adapt to this experience? Let's start with you, Chris.
Well, I would say, personally, first of all, I've never had a university experience in Greece, only, high school and whatnot. But recently I went to Greece and I actually attended some of my friends' classes at university. So I can say I now have an accurate representation of both countries. And I would say both are very distinctly different educational systems. One specific experience that I feel like has really stood out to me in Sweden is simply the fact that there is a huge emphasis on group projects. And I realized that as time went by, that every single professor put, like, I think around 40% of our grade was based on a group project. And at first I thought that was just a first, second class, because it is marketing at the end of the day. But I realized that this goes for every single course. Whereas back in Greece, my friends either had optional group projects or they just had 100% of their grade based on the final exam. Whereas here, for me personally, it would be 60%. So it was definitely a bit different. And it was unexpected because I hadn't had a lot of group project experience before coming here. So it was definitely challenging trying to adapt to that. But I would say it was such a pleasant experience. I learned so much about it. And I really understand why it is such a significant part in the Swedish educational system in general, because it really does transform the way you learn. And I see that as a really big, like, positive aspect, in my opinion.
Nice, nice. Okay, how about you, Dala?
I think my experience is quite different from Chris. We don't really have much of the group assignment that we have to do together. I mean, we have like for a seminar and whatnot, but those things are not graded. So most of the grade that we get is based on our individual work, coupled with the exam that we take. And I think in terms of the classroom experience, I don't find it much different because I did my bachelor in my home country and I did my master here. So it is kind of the same, or probably it is because of the major that I am currently taking. So probably that's why it's different. But one thing that is different for me is that here you take only one course at a time. In my country, like for example, if you study for a one semester and there are five subjects that you have to complete, then for the duration of 4 months you study all those five subjects simultaneously. So you have the schedule for Monday, Tuesday, like for during the week, and then it's like it's the same for next week month until like the whole semester is finished. But here, no, I take only one course. Like for example, right now I am taking one course and it is like it ended today, and tomorrow I'm taking another course. So it's like it's kind of different types of course. And I find it really nice because in a sense you get to like integrate yourself fully with that course, and you kind of can go deeper into what you are currently learning compared to if you have to devote your attention to like all of the courses at the same time. So for that, I find it's really nice for students.
Yeah. So to yeah, it's very normal here in Sweden to have like just one course, finish that, and then take the next course. But programs vary. There are some programs that have multiple courses at the same time, just so we make that clear. But it's very, very normal to just have one course at a time here in Sweden, and I love that as well. How about you, Chris? Do you have one course at a time, or do you have
I
multiple?
have two courses at a time, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. It's really convenient as well. I'd say it's practically the same perks that Della mentioned. Two courses are really manageable. So
Great, great. So another thing to note is like the education experience in Sweden is very non-hierarchical, and that can be somewhat of a culture shock to international students coming here. So, meaning in most cases, you speak to your professor by first name, and the education, as we discussed, is a lot discussion based and group work, and yeah, it's not really just a professor like talking and you listening. It's a lot of discussion based education here in Sweden, which I think is great. All right, let's do some packing tips. So looking back, what would you have packed differently for your move to Sweden? Did you bring something unnecessary? Did you forget something that you wish you would have brought along? Let's start with you, Chris.
well, it's really interesting because going through this moving process from one accommodation to the other, I realized how much stuff I have that I really do not need. And majority of it actually I brought from home. So I would say if I were to have packed something differently, I definitely would have brought less clothes and shoes. Most of them actually were not even suited for the Swedish weather. So, because I mean, living in Greece in constant high temperatures, most of my clothes I can only wear for just 1 or 2 months here during the summer. So it's a bit weird, I would say, in that sense. But other than that, I feel like I came really prepared. I brought a lot of things, but apart from clothes, like just having like sheets, towels, having like the basic necessities that you feel like you use every day, electronics, everything, really important. But I think that when it comes to packing from home, it's important to remember that you can buy a lot of things in Sweden as well. And there are a lot of affordable options. So not everything necessarily has to be expensive. So from the most basic stuff that you might need in your home or decorations and whatnot, like there's so many affordable options here in Sweden. So I would say focus on your necessities, on the things that you know you're going to be using every day, or the things you know, for example, when it comes to clothes, the things you know you will be wearing every day because they will keep you warm. So definitely something to consider, and it definitely varies from person to person. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. How about you, Della?
I shared the same experience as Krish. I brought too many stuff that I do not need, especially when it comes to clothes, because I think most like clothes take the big space when it comes to packing. You pack a lot of it, but yeah, so make sure to pack only what is necessary and what is when you wear it, it makes you comfortable, especially with shoes. I bring too many pairs of shoes that I cannot wear because it's not comfortable. It looks cute, it looks nice, but no, it's not comfortable. So think about that when you pack. And also, I think I packed two winter jacket from home. But the thing is, we don't have winter in my country, so the jacket itself doesn't keep you warm enough with the Swedish weather. So if you're like me, if you're coming from a like a hot country, you don't have to bring like winter shoes or winter jacket to Sweden because it's better to buy it here. I think you can invest more and buy here so that you know that what you buy you can use it. It is practically like usable. In Sweden. And yeah, so that's what I regret bringing. What I regret not bringing is some spice from my country because I find it hard. It okay, on one sense it's expensive, on the other hand it doesn't exist. There are certain types of spice that I would miss, and I should have brought it along. And another thing is sunscreen is like makeup in general. So if you're into that, check whether all the stuff that you use you can buy it in Sweden because most of the thing you cannot. So make sure to pack that accordingly. So yes, that would be my experience with packing.
Great tips. Let's move on to some of the cultural and Swedish traditions here in Sweden. So, have you participated in any Swedish traditions or cultural activities? And which was your favorite and why? Let's start with you, Dana.
Um, I'm not sure if that's called Swedish tradition or cultural activity, but I've been here for like 8 months, so there's not much like happening. I'm looking forward to Wild Boy and Midsummer actually, but
Yeah,
I've never experienced that. But the closest one, I would say, the Lucia celebration.
yeah.
Yes. So it's nice to participate in it, not like just looking, just watching them do stuff. And I think it's a really nice activity. And the thing is, whenever Sweden celebrates something, there's always like the backstory of it, which I find it's kind of beautiful, that you have all this tradition and culture. And I think it's really nice, and I am really looking forward to participate more actually in the activity.
Have you what do you call it? But do you do fika? Maybe.
Oh, fika. Oh,
Yeah,
yes. Oh, I overlooked that. I
yeah.
feel like it's so normal. It's so common here that it's not really make you. It's not like a culture shock anymore. But yeah, fika is really a big things here, especially with your if you work with your college and with your corridor mates. But yes, that's the thing. Linking back to Swedish language, I feel like in Fika, most Swedish people they want to speak Swedish. So if you don't speak Swedish, it's kind of hard to like communicate over coffee or snacks like that. Yeah,
Another great reason to learn the language then.
yeah.
Okay, great. So how about you, Chris? Have you participated in any like?
I think for me, I'm always trying to find different activities and traditions to participate in because again, I really think it's really important to be like culturally immersed in the society. Of course, like fika is such a normal thing here, and like just taking constant breaks during your day and just doing things one step at a time, just that in itself is really I would say it's a cultural activity here because it's really not something that I'm used to from back home. Of course, also like since we talked about fika, just the fact that when you drink your coffee, always like I don't think I've seen someone outside get takeaway like their coffee. Like they always sit down to drink their coffee and
Mhm.
eat fika and whatnot. So I think that's also something that I really do. I no longer grab coffee like in my hand. But I would say like Dala, I did attend some Saint Lucia tradition like activities and events during December, I think it was. It was really fun, actually. Although obviously it might happen, it might take place from like religious point of view, but I'm not religious in that sense. But it's really interesting to observe it from a cultural point of view, and it's really beautiful. I'm looking forward to Valborg as well in a few days. There are a lot of cultural activities in Sweden, and it's so interesting to find out why they exist, how they've come about, and why students and why Swedish people in general celebrate the way they do.
Yeah, Valborg or Walpurgis, or yeah, it has various names. It's a very big student tradition here in Sweden, especially in Uppsala and Lund, Stockholm as well. But yeah, over the entire country, where yeah, all the students get together and party pretty much and enjoy the sun that hopefully comes out in a couple, yeah, in a week now. There's also midsummer celebrations that are quite yeah, Swedish, and the fika culture. If you are more in the northern part of the country, you might be able to see the northern lights, and yeah, that's cool. And yeah, we have some traditional Swedish cuisine as well. Have you tried any like classic Swedish food, Dala?
Yes, the Swedish meatball.
Yeah.
But I also tried the flying Jacob.
Yes. Yes.
It's the Swedish food, and I find it foreign in a sense that you fry banana with with chicken, which
Yeah.
I've never done it before.
Yeah, it's quite special. Chris, have you also tried?
The Swedish meatballs for sure, but not a lot of otherwise very unconventional Swedish food like Dala. Not really.
No, no. What's it called? The fish, the sustra. Can't even remember what it's called right now. But like the fish that smells a lot. Do you know what I mean?
I think so. No, not really. I'm really particular about the fish I eat, and so possibly not. Eventually, I will, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah, we'll see. There's still time.
yeah.
Let's ask the chat. So, what aspects of Swedish culture are you the most excited to experience? Write your answers in the chat. We have the midsummer celebrations, the fika culture, northern light sighting, or the traditional Swedish cuisine. Let's see, what are we excited to experience here in Sweden? So, type one, two, three, or four. Let's see, three, 2, 3, 3, 3, 1, 2, 2, and 3. All of it. Yeah, love it. Falukorv, yes, the Swedish cuisine. 1 and 3, the Northern Lights, definitely. Yeah, I can really recommend if you come here to Sweden, even if you come to like Lund, which is in the southern parts of Sweden, we can really recommend to take like a trip up north and see the beautiful landscape that we have. Okay, great. Now we only have 3 minutes left. I just noticed, so let's get on with it. Let's do one last question for you. So after your move, let's see. After you move, reflecting on your first weeks in Sweden, what steps would you recommend new students take to smoothly transition to life here? Like, what is the biggest tip you can give to a new student coming here? Let's start with you, Chris.
I would say for me, the one thing I would 100% recommend, because it's had a really significant impact on how I've lived my life at the beginning and how I'm currently living, is definitely focusing a lot on your student life and the social life at the beginning. So attending all of like the celebrations at the beginning of the year and getting to meet a lot of your classmates and a lot of people from other programs as well. It really helps you make friends. First of all, my best friends here are people that I've met during my first weeks, but also it makes you feel part of your university, a part of other people that are also going through the same struggles that you're going through as you're moving. And I would say it really helps you explore your city, explore Sweden and different traditions or different like new things that you can do that you possibly couldn't do in your home country. So definitely focus on social life, definitely attend the beginning celebrations. That's it for my part.
That's a great tip. How about you, Della?
Yeah, I think the same as Krish. Some university they offer this knowledge weeks where there's a lot of activity for newly admitted student that just arrived in Sweden. So it's a good way to like make friends and all the other stuff to know the other people. But I would say don't be too hard on yourself. Like participate in as many or as little as you want, because like you don't have to feel like you're gonna miss out on something, because once you settle down like smoothly, you get to know where everything is, then there's a lot of ongoing activity that you can participate later on. So don't be too hard on yourself with that. And my that's not a tip or anything, but it's just a purchase thing at the secondhand store. And I wouldn't recommend going to IKEA once you arrive here, because I feel like once you arrive here, and if you go to IKEA, you would see that many things that you want to buy, and then you're gonna end up buying a lot of stuff, and then you're gonna end up spending a lot of money, which is not necessary. So just go to the secondhand store and you can save a lot of time and a lot of money as well.
Great, great. Yeah, secondhand is super, super good. I mean, it's good for the environment. It's good for your bank account. And there's a lot of Facebook groups that you can join where people sell and buy. So be sure to check that out. Now we're running out of time. I'm not sure if we have some minutes for questions. How are you, Chris and Dala? Do you have 5 minutes maybe to
Yeah.
spare? Great. Then let's go 5 minutes over time and open up for questions from the chat. So if you watch the stream and you have any questions regarding moving to Sweden, how it is in Sweden, what do you want to ask our international students here, Dala and Chris? Let's see. Let's bring up the chat and see if we got any questions. Okay. Let's do how many, this is interesting. How many hours per day do you spend at your university? So like how many hours a day usually do you have class? How about you, Chris?
I would say when it comes to classes, every way my schedule kind of varies, but on a normal day, I have around 2 hours of classes. Usually from either from 8 a.m., 8 to 10, or like up until 1 p.m., I would say. So most of my evenings are free. But usually I stay at university. I either go earlier and leave later, but yeah, around 2 hours, I'd say.
2 hours. How about you, Dala?
Yeah, I think it's the same. For me, it's around 2 to 4 hours, and I don't like the class doesn't have every day, so probably every other day. But in between those days, you got a lot of preparation going on. So yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, study wise, it's only like 2 to 4 hours, but if you count like going to the library and doing other stuff, then it's way a lot more.
Yeah, so maybe the classes are just 2 to 4 hours, but then there's a lot of self-study and projects, of
Yep.
course. Okay, this is interesting. What are Dala and Chris doing to make money? Is it only scholarship, or do they work? How is your situation? Can you tell us?
Yes.
Let's start. Yeah, let's start with you, Dala.
Yes. So, in addition to the scholarship money that I get, I think we both work as a digital ambassador for study in Sweden as a part-time job. So I think yeah, that's add to our allowance. But in addition to like getting the money, it's also the experience, the connection, and also ways to enrich your student life when you're in Sweden. Yep. But that's how we work.
And Chris?
I would say, yeah, exactly. So we both work as digital ambassadors for Study in Sweden. So part of my income is that, and I also get CSN because of my part-time work from being a digital ambassador and from doing some side gigs here and there. So my income really fluctuates, I would say. But yeah, it's really nice as an EU student. If you work, I think at least 10 hours a week, I think, if I'm not mistaken, you can get CSN, which is the Swedish student grant, you could say. I don't know how to call it, but yeah, it's really convenient. That's, and of course savings is really important. I focus a lot on savings, making sure from money I've brought home, from money I save when I can. So yeah.
Great. Let's see. What do you recommend is the best time to arrive in Sweden? A week or two before the autumn semester? What do you think?
I arrived 2 weeks, I think, before coming here, before my courses started, and I think it's really nice. At least it helped me get settled, get everything I needed in my apartment, kind of explore the city before I started meeting people, before the classes started. I feel like you definitely need your time to for everything to go a bit smoothly, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we got a lot of questions, and we had way too less of a time to answer all of the questions. We greatly appreciate it. You can please do type the questions as comments below the live stream as we end it. And if you want to join us on the live stream that is this afternoon, you can ask more questions there. I will make sure to have more time for answering the questions from the chat. And yeah, I also want to promote another live stream that we host in on the 7th of May. We're going to have a prepare for a career in Sweden live stream. So most of you haven't even gotten to Sweden yet, but if you are looking to build a career here in Sweden, tune in for that. And if you're watching this stream and you haven't been admitted to studies in Sweden yet, then I can highly recommend you to attend the Study in Sweden online fair. We have a fair at 4th of May coming up. So there you can talk to various Swedish universities, you can talk to Study in Sweden, and you can ask questions about scholarship. You can ask any and all questions to a lot of various representatives. But this is it. I'm not going to take up more of Chris's and Dallas' time here. We're going to end the live stream here. Thank you all for participating, and thank you, Chris and Dala, for sharing your experience here with us today. And yeah, thank you all. And we will see you maybe this afternoon, all of you in the chat. So, okay, have a good day.